Hey YouTube, it's Mushy here. I've been learning some Python programming the past couple of weeks. This is my first completed program, although it never really feels completed, if you know what I mean. What I've made so far, it's hyper advanced, and it's gonna save you hours of time keyframing and deform. If you're a programmer, you're probably gonna be triggered by my code. I know I've used an excessive amount of global variables. Anyways, let me show you how it works. So once you've downloaded the zip file, just extract it anywhere. If you downloaded it without the virtual environment, just make sure you run the setup bat file first. That'll install the custom tkinter package. And then all you gotta do is run it. So this is what you're gonna be looking at here. This is in the center is your configuration loop. And I have 8 configurations that it can potentially loop through. If you leave them as 0, it'll skip them. And if you leave the frame intervals, it'll set it to the default, which is the start interval. But you probably won't do that. So you have your start frame that's gonna run the first frame once, and then it will go to the main loop of the configurations. And I did this because the start frame is usually 0, and 0 is kind of a weird number and it throws everything off. So you would probably understand why I did it like that later on. Anyways, your start frame configuration. All your configurations can be a number or a string. If you're doing a string, it means you're probably trying to set up prompts, which are a different format. So let me show you an example. If I did a prompt format, say morning, noon, evening, night, and midnight. This is just an example maybe you might use. It's gonna loop through these 5. We'll set up our intervals. I'll just make them all the same. The total amount of frames, so it'll be the total amount of the video or just the section that you're trying to go to. So let's say 20,000. But say you're running just a section, you can start that at 10,000 if you want. And since this is a string format, you'll probably want to have quotes and the new lines turned on. And that'll put it into this format. The first frame, you have to indent that with 4 spaces. But that's about all you have to do. And then we have the loop, starting at 10,000. Well, except for the first frame, but loops through to 20,000. You just copy and paste that in. But if you're doing, let's say you're doing the strength configuration, it would look like that. So you'd have like, you could have a loop 0.5, 0.7, 0.6, 0.4. And that just helps deform not get stuck or frozen or glitch out. You have it the higher configuration, it's gonna try to copy the previous frame for frame consistency. But then if it starts to glitch out too much, it's copying the previous frame too much, you want to lower it to a lower number, and that'll give Deform more creative freedom to break out of any glitchiness that might be happening, or just changing scenes in general. It's super useful. So I'll put this one back to 0. That'll skip that. And I'll turn this off because we're doing a config. So you could keep new lines turned on if you just want to view the file in that format. And obviously the file name, I just leave it default as output. And every time you generate a file, it'll add a file number, which will increase by 1 each time. So let's take a look here. This is just a vertical format. If you want to look at it and edit that, just makes it a hell of a lot easier to to see it in a different perspective, because like the non-vertical perspective can look very confusing if you're doing more custom stuff. And basically what you can do with the vertical format is open up a text editor like Visual Code. It's really good. Drag it in. After you completed your editing, just hold Shift Alt, select, and you can delete that. And now it's horizontal format, and you just copy and paste it in. That's why I thought I would show you guys that. It can be extremely useful. And I recently just added in a timecode to keyframe calculator right here. This is going to be super useful if you're doing more custom work and you need to know, okay, that 1 minute, 10 seconds, I need to know what keyframe that is. You can just hit this calculate button, boom. I wish I had that for my previous video I was working on, which you should check out. What else do we got here? So those settings, you can do your zoom settings with a zoom config. Say 2, 2, 2. You can do -2, +2, -2. You want to do it that way. You could also do things like, so say you alternate your strength configuration 0.7, 0.6, 0.7. Let's say it's the image is starting to get hung up and you want it to swap to a different config. Then you go 0.4, and then the amount of frames where it switches, you could actually lower that and have it like 10. And the amount of times it takes for the amount of frames, sorry, that it takes to get to the next config, you could increase it. And Deform will gradually, incrementally step it down each frame to this. So if you want it to switch quicker, you would have 10 frames there. If you want it to stay more random and creative during that section, you're getting increase to this. All right. So then on top of that, I've added randomization just to get it a little bit more organic feeling. You just hit this button, turn the random frames on. You probably don't want it to have that much randomness. Maybe you do. But this basically will pick a number between 1 and 10 that I have set. And it's going to just add it on to each one of these every time it cycles through. You'll have a random amount added. So there's one more thing I should mention. There is a small limitation to this program that I haven't got figured out yet. Say you tried to do 1,000,000 keyframes or total frames at 15 intervals, and you started at 0. Just turn that off. We can use random frames, I guess. We run that. You'll notice I've only got into 549,000. And I think this is due to the limit of a string. It reaches the total capacity of the string, and it just keeps looping, and it won't add anything else. Unfortunately, there is a way around that. Let's say you're trying to do 500,000 frames, but you just run it in chunks. So you would run it to 250,000 first. And then you would start at 250,000, which is like an insane amount. I don't know why you would do that, but maybe. Then you would run it to your next chunk. But this is also great if you just have sections of your video, you want a different configuration. You can just start it wherever you need to and end it wherever you need to, and you just copy and paste it all together. Well, I think that's about the end of the video. If this helps you out, like, subscribe. Till next time, stay creative. Peace.